I declare war. So I'm a big fan of Game of Thrones. I'm watching it for the second time. I've been binge watching it lately. And right now I'm at season 5. And there's a character on that show by the name of Theon Greyjoy. He's a prince. He's a part of the Ironborn group of people. He is the heir apparent to the throne of the Ironborn. And at some point in the story, Theon Greyjoy gets captured by his enemies in the north, by the Boltons. The person who captures him is a man by the name of Ramsay Snow, a man who is literally a bastard, a man who, by birthright, there's some questions about whether or not he can attain the throne in the Bolton group because he's a bastard. So this bastard, Ramsay Snow, is sadistic. So after he captures Theon Greyjoy, he tortures him, brutally tortures him. He plays all kinds of mind tricks on him. And he completely indoctrinates and brainwashes Theon Greyjoy. He teaches him that he is no longer Theon Greyjoy, an heir to a throne, but instead he gives him a new name, and that name is Reek. Reek as in stinks. So he calls this man Reek, and that man takes on this name Reek. And even worse than that, in addition to torturing Theon Greyjoy and, changing his identity, this man literally castrates Theon Greyjoy. So once he castrates him and he completely brainwashes him, Theon Greyjoy is transformed into a slave, into a servant. So he completely identifies with his captor, Ramsay Snow and the Boltons. And for that reason, he becomes an agent against his own people. Theon Greyjoy betrays his own Ironborn people. He pretends to be one of them, to be down with the Ironborn. He presents himself as if he's Theon Greyjoy, but he has been programmed to be this guy Reek. And he goes into this stronghold and tricks those people into surrendering, and the guy Ramsay Snow and the Boltons slaughter the Ironborn, completely destroying them because of this guy, Theon Greyjoy, who goes by the name Reek after being thoroughly brainwashed. So he betrays his people. Because of his betrayal, his people get slaughtered. And it's not the first time that he betrays his people. He betrays people several times after being thoroughly brainwashed by his captors. And it gets to a point that he is so thoroughly brainwashed that when his sister comes to rescue him, instead of going with his sister who's trying to save his life, this brainwashed man, Reek, clings to his cave. He literally clings and tries to stay in his cave in order to avoid going with his sister. He fights his sister when his sister tries to bring him to freedom. He literally fights her. And we're talking about a man who's been brutally tortured by his captors. Instead of sleeping in a room like any other human being, this man, Theon Greyjoy, is forced to sleep in a cage that dogs are held in. He's forced to live like an animal. So he's thoroughly brainwashed. He rejects his sister when she comes to rescue him. He fights his sister. So he's an example of somebody who is thoroughly brainwashed by their enemy, someone who has been stripped of their identity, someone who completely identifies with their enemy and rejects their own identity and their own people, even their own family relatives. This man has been so thoroughly brainwashed that he has become a complete slave. a complete tool of this other man, Ramsay Snow, and his family, the Boltons. And as I was watching that, watching the Game of Thrones, thinking about this character, it made me think about the so-called coon in America. It made me think about the traitors among us. It made me think about people like David Carroll. People who have been so thoroughly brainwashed by the enemy, who have been figuratively castrated to such a degree that they don't even view, like this guy David Carroll, he has complete contempt for his own people. He is hostile to his own people. He attacks his own people, calling them monkeys, calling them savages, calling black communities shitholes. He has adopted the mentality of his slave master. Just like that character, Theon Greyjoy, has adopted the mentality of his captors, the Boltons. This man is used against his own people, just like Theon Greyjoy was used against his own people. This man attacks his own people while he defends a racist. Despite all the racist things that Donald Trump has said, this tap-dancing, boot-licking, ass-kissing coon had the nerve to say Donald Trump is not a racist, while he acknowledges that Donald Trump retweets information from racist websites, while it's undeniable that Donald Trump defended those racists in Charlottesville, Virginia, while it's undeniable that this man, Donald Trump, has appointed racists to positions of power and influence, you have this tap-dancing, boot-licking house Negro, David Carroll, who has the audacity to say that Donald Trump is not a racist. Despite all the things that Donald Trump has said. I have a blog piece that points out like 13 things that this man has said that clearly indicate that he's a racist. Whether we're talking about him calling Mexicans rapists and criminals, or statements that he's made about black people not wanting to have them count his money and calling black people lazy. Despite all of that, you have this tap-dancing, boot-licking Negro, David Carroll, saying that this man is not a racist. And on top of that, this man co-signs this man's racism by taking it a step further, by not just, mentioning that this guy said that Africa and Haiti were shitholes. This guy is extending that statement to include black communities around America, calling them shitholes, referring to entire communities and entire cities as shitholes, while defending a white racist. This is that Stockholm mentality. This is the mentality of somebody who's been completely castrated of their manhood, someone who has embraced the ideology of their oppressor, someone who has betrayed their community, and someone who looks upon this white man as the only one who's capable of governing, looks upon this white man as being better than his own people. Actually embracing the idea that black people are incapable of governing themselves. The Stockholm Syndrome. He actually believes that the film A Birth of a Nation was the best film ever made. A film glorifying a terrorist organization, the KKK. An organization that lynched black people, bombed black churches, shot black people, burned black people, and beat black people. But this film, Birth of a Nation, depicts these people, these Klansmen, these terrorists, as heroes, here to rescue the white community from the Negro beast. This film projects this idea that if black people govern, the world will go to hell. it'll be the end of the white man's world. And that is an idea that this tap dancing, bootlicking coon David Carroll promotes in his video. This idea that black people will destroy government if they are put in positions of governing. This idea that only the white man is capable of good government. He's totally bought into this myth of white supremacy. Totally bought into it. So, yeah, I mean, I just wanted to say that this guy is an example of a modern day coon, a modern day slave. He is just like that character in the Game of Thrones who has been captured by his enemy, castrated by his enemy, where he's no longer a man. He no longer has the courage to speak out against the issues of oppression, against the issues of racism in our community. Instead, he defends these races. Instead, he attacks the people who have been victimized by the races. And he looks upon the races as being the only ones capable of governing his people. He has so little faith in his own that he thinks that they're incapable of governing. You know, that film, Birth of a Nation, portrayed the black man as a sex-crazed maniac lusting after white women. It depicted black people as stupid, as lazy, as incapable. But this is a film that this buffoon, this tap-dancing minstrel, this coon views as one of the greatest films ever. And that fact alone speaks volumes. You know, the notion that black people aren't capable of governing is absolutely preposterous. We built human civilization. We were the first whoever built great civilizations. We were the first kings and queens. And we have great black politicians today who, despite the challenges that our people face, they have made a difference in our community. All we have to do is look to a city like Newark, New Jersey, where you have a great mayor there, Ras Baraka, making all kinds of change. All we have to do is look at a Barack Obama. Look at his administration. Look at where the United States government was before he took power, on the brink of economic collapse. And look at where we are today as a result of Obama. Look at all the benefits of the Affordable Care Act, and I could go on and on. The notion that black people are incapable of governing is nothing but a white supremacist propaganda point. And it's a damn shame that you have a House Negro, a Uncle Ruckus, perpetuating that white supremacist lie.